Ludzie znali naszą historię. Nie mogłam tak ryzykować. Gdyby rodzina się dowiedziała.
That was a clip from Dana Modan's 2024 film The Property, about an Israeli woman who brings her granddaughter to Poland to reclaim property seized during World War II, a journey that ultimately is more about unearthing lost love than fiscal treasure. Modan's film was based on her sister Rutu Modan's 2013 graphic novel of the same name. The Toby Center for Jewish Studies invited Rutu to campus to screen the film and talk about being a pioneer in the graphic novel scene in Israel. What can graphic novels do that literature and film cannot? How can a genre called comics respond to and reflect on the devastation of war and incalculable loss? I'm Shayna Hammerman, and this is Cite and Sound, the Stanford Jewish Studies podcast. Here we host conversations with scholars and artists as we explore Jewish scholarship, culture, and history. On today's episode of Cite and Sound, Rutu Modan is in conversation with the Toby Center's writer-in-residence, the renowned author Maya Arad, about art, literature, and the characters who search, whether via Polish apartments or missing loves or archaeological treasure, for their humanity. And now, the conversation.
It's a great pleasure and honor to speak with you today, Rutu. There's so much I'd like to ask, but I'll start with, how did you start writing? Were you an artist first, or were you always a storyteller? How did you become a comic book artist?
When I grew up in Israel in the 70s and 80s, there was almost no comics. I always say that Israel, maybe it's the only country that Superman and Tintin were not successful business failures. But there were some in children's magazine. But I think it's for me, the medium is really natural for me because even my drawing from kindergarten, it was stories. Not necessarily comics, but I did have some drawings where my mother wrote the stories that I dictated her. But it was only when I was in the Bezalel Academy. So one of my professors was Michel Kishka. He's a very well-known comics artist in Israel. He's from Belgium. He came to Israel already in his 20s. So he came from a very rich comics tradition. And he established the first comics course in Bezalel. And I was one of his 6 students. So I went to the class, so probably I was interested. But what I do remember was what he did, he brought us from his collection, like I think it was like 50 books, or maybe more. This was the first from American comics, alternative comics, mainstream, French comics, all kinds of... and he said, you don't know anything about comics, so just read for an hour. And it was like falling in love. It was like in the stories, that after 1 hour, I knew this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. I fell in love with the medium. And I think 2 months afterwards, I already had a comic strip in a newspaper.
Right. Yeah. But still, we're building up from a comic strip to short stories, right? And then like a full-length graphic novel. I'm just interested in the development.
So the first years, I did short comic strips. And then I wanted to develop more to longer stories, but I didn't have the confidence in writing. So I contacted Edgar Keret. He's probably, if you know him, but he's a very famous artist. But he wasn't very famous then. This was my luck. I read his stories in the newspaper, in the magazine. He was published in a local magazine. I called him, and this is what's so easy in Israel. The advantage of Israel is that you can reach anyone by 1 or 2 phone calls. I just called him. I told him, I like your stories. Your stories are really visual. I want to draw comic stories. Let's work together. And he said, yes, I like comics, let's do it, because he is a very adventurous person. So for a while, we did short stories together. He was writing, I was drawing, but we really worked together. We even collected me into a book. And this also gave me the confidence to start writing by myself. I wrote short stories, and we had this independent publishing house. We self-published our work. We distributed them in Israel, abroad. So only in 2004, I got this commission to write a graphic novel. by Drawn Quarterly. Yeah, I waited for it. He said, do you want to do a graphic novel for us? I said, yes, I was waiting just to ask for 20 years. Yeah, this is how it began.
Right. Now, as a writer who works with words, I'm very curious to know what do you think that visual art can do for a story and what it cannot? What type of things, a comic book can give you that just words cannot?
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in what's the connection between the content and the medium. And what I always also speak a lot about it with my students, that you have to understand the medium and what kind of stories and what the medium, what is unique to the medium.
Mhm.
And then you can develop it using also tools from other mediums, but also try to understand what the medium can do that other mediums cannot do. And as a visual medium, and now this is in general, not just comics, is the advantage is maybe we'll start from what does well. It doesn't tell. It's more difficult to speak about internal feelings or of thoughts. Of course, you can write it. You can write with balloons like a cloud and and the captions. But still, I think that literature can do it in a better way. It's more part of literature, exploring the inner feelings, the inner thoughts of a character, of a person. What visual arts is, what a visual story can do it, and what I first of all, it's very immediate. It's very direct because we perceive it's something physical, physiological, not physical. Yes, we perceive image much faster than we perceive text because it's no, it's more primitive ability that we have since we were animals, and we had to interpret the nature. So it's very immediate, so it's an advantage, and also it can be a disadvantage. But it's advantage because we understand it's more international. It's cross culture, cross ages.
Right. And it's also sometimes it's much less clumsy because if I write a story and I want to say, he saw his mother's beloved necklace on someone else's,
Yeah,
understanding that she stole it from her deathbed.
yeah,
In a comics, you can just show it, right?
yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. But also, sometimes it's nice in literature that you can use the words to describe what is undescribable. It's also a power of literature. So it depends what you do with it. For example, a frame of someone smiling. Okay, so someone is smiling. Okay, but if you tell it in words in literature, describing the happiness. So it's another way of interpreting the world or ourselves. So I'm not calculating like what is better, but what we can do with it, and what kind of experience, and then how to use it.
Right. You told me about someone who told you, I read your book in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
People don't quite understand how to read it sometimes. You have to learn how to read a comic book.
It was very strange. It happened to me a lot that people say, oh, it's very easy, like 20 minutes and I read the whole book, like a compliment. And well, then I think I'm trying to be polite, so I don't say, we have to read the drawing as well, because so much information is in the drawing.
Yeah, actually, I reread, your book just before, our talk, and I realized how much more, and for the second or third time that you read them, you see so much more.
Yeah, and this is also something that I like, that I can hide something because it's not linear. I'd like just put it there, and sometimes maybe people won't see it because it's in the background or it's just a frame without text, passing by something. So I take into consideration, and again, it's an advantage and disadvantages that maybe the reader won't see it, or maybe he won't notice it in the first time, third time, or maybe he won't read it in the second time. And also, one of the problems is you cannot do surprises. No surprises, not so good in comics, because let's say, in a film, because film is also a visual storytelling, but in film, the creator has 100% control on the timeline. So in each second, he knows what the audience was going to see. I cannot rely on it because the first thing, so you can do it like a bomb suddenly or something. It is a surprise. But in books, you know what the first thing that someone do in any book is doing like this. When you have it in the shop already. So if there is somebody is shooting someone, and because we don't in a regular book, well, you don't. Maybe you catch a word or something, and if you don't, you're not lucky. It happened to me once that I did like this, and I knew who was the killer. So this is why I think spoilers do not exist in comics. You have to. There's no surprises, no spoilers. You have to work around it.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All three of your novels deal with very serious cultural and political issues at the core of Israeli identity, the Holocaust, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, what's known as the Hamatzav in Israel, the situation. And many prose authors avoid dealing with these issues for many different reasons. Sometimes they feel that it puts an extra burden on the writing another book about the conflict. And do you feel that the genre of graphic novel makes it easier to tackle those very heavy topics or give it a different angle?
First of all, this is my medium. I cannot. So these are my tools. Right. For a long time, I was accused that I'm not political enough. So now,
but maybe not political enough means being able to engage with very political issues.
I try to write political books or political issues, but the place and time are very interesting for me. The fact that we are born into a place and time, and then all our life goes according to it, and we didn't choose it, and we think it's part of our personality, but actually it's no. And the place is almost like a character, and I feel that in my books, and I didn't plan it, but I feel that the place like Warsaw or Tel Aviv, Israel, occupied territories, they are all like characters of itself,
right, right,
as itself, and it's part of the story. How you are stuck in a place, and then what you do there, what you choose to do.
Still, I can't put my finger on it, but I have the feeling that something about this genre makes it easy. It would be very hard to write it in words, but
no. First of all, yeah, it is difficult to describe it in words. You know what's going through in this place.
There's a certain burden
and the drawings make it more. I said before that the drawings are more direct, but so it seems like I contradict myself, but it also has some detachment from reality. The drawings, the styling, the fact that it's nice colors, cute characters, funny, make some kind of detachment from the situation that it allows you. When there are many examples, like for example, Marjan Satrapi book Persepolis, is very famous, of course, Mouse, but in Persepolis, Marjan Satrapi, she drew tortures in prisons of prisoners, and if it was in photographs or in film, you couldn't see it. You couldn't watch it. It would be too much. It would be like snuff. Also, there are researchers that if the images are too strong, we forget them immediately. They were trying for example, in advertisements, when they were trying to show people crashing in cars that horror way just because they didn't put the safety belt. People didn't remember anything from from the ads. So the drawings, it's a subtle way to show horrors, and more possible for us to
and it's something that it's different from words and it's different from film, so it's really unique. Yeah. Still on the same topic, we can't avoid completely the event of the past 15 months. The word tunnels has taken on a new meaning in the Israeli collective memory since October 7. And perhaps it's an unfair question, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you think you might approach it differently if you were writing it today? And do you think the Israeli readers would be able to read such a book?
Well, this is a good question. First of all, tunnels. A year and a half ago, everybody was like surprised of the tunnels. I don't know why, because I wrote tunnels because of the tunnels. I knew about the tunnel. Everybody knew about the tunnels. Also, I can tell you that because for the research of the book, I read a lot about the tunnels, and they were trying to make all kinds of invention and ways to how to solve this problem of the tunnels. So it's not like nobody knew, but it's very difficult for scientific reasons that I'm not going to explain now. So it's like they know how to deal with it. They said, okay, we cannot deal with it. So, but it's not like nobody knew about it. It was in the paper, it was everywhere. Still, I asked if I could do it. Now I feel that book is really naive, But I can tell you that when I started it, it was the operation before, because it's not the first.
Like 2014 around.
Who knows,
Yeah,
there are many. So
Lost
one of them,
count.
I was really angry about the operation, about everyone, about the Israelis, about the Palestinians, about the violence. And I say, this time, because I started reading the book, I said, it won't be a good ending, because you don't deserve a good ending. It would be a disaster in the end. It would be a bad ending, because usually my endings are not completely good, but I think that I have a rachamim,
Mercy.
a mercy for my characters and for the readers. And I was really angry, so it's going to be a bad ending. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I was writing, I was drawing the book, I was writing it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't, I don't know, maybe it's a problem of mine. Because I used to be very optimistic. Now I'm less optimistic than I used to be. It's not both. It's not completely happy. So again, I don't know, because I was angry then already, It's not that I felt that everything was good. And the book is about all these people, all kinds of people, all kinds of groups of the settlers and Palestinians and the academic from university, Jerusalem Hebrew University, and the army. And everyone they have a mission. And they have a mission that they want to do something together, but they keep making deals and betray each other. They cannot, because they have one mission, but the interests are different and they cannot trust each other. Right. And this leads to disaster, or almost disaster. In reality, it is a disaster.
It's a very brave book, I think, because it presents both Palestinians and settlers, including some very wild settlers, yes.
And also these Daesh terrorists, which I really like.
The ISIS people, yeah.
The ISIS people, yeah. And I tell you, don't think I ever told it to anyone, but in the beginning, I made them Hamas terrorist. But I was afraid. I was afraid that maybe it's too much. Maybe ISIS, everybody hates ISIS. So that makes them ISIS. They are not bad. They are not really bad. They are more stupid than bad, And even that was a little bit difficult for my American publisher.
Wow.
The fact that they exist was a little bit like,
right.
What would people say?
Yeah.
What did people say?
I thought it was a very happy ending that the mean professor ended up with the
From that point of view, yeah, this is a very, very happy ending, because he's a bad guy. But it depends, because, the Ark of Covenant, it's written in the book, and it's what the myth about it is that whoever has it will win, will always win, because this is the artifact that if you have it, your army will always win. So if the Ark is in the hands of ISIS, I left it open.
Exactly, yeah. We don't know what's real and what's fake, yeah.
Because, yeah, it
and
depends.
That's the nice thing about it. Yeah.
So we still don't know.
Now, can you say something about different reception in Israel and abroad? And I mean, this question has two parts. Reception outside Israel. So those books are, as you said, the time and place are a character in them. Exit Wounds takes place in 2002 during the Second Intifada. Even for me, when I reread it, it read a little bit like history, right? What it was like back then. I wonder, how people outside Israel who don't read the news all the time and are not so well versed in everything accepted this or tunnels or the property. The other side of the question, you said before correctly that there were hardly any graphic novels in Israel. I think Exit Wounds is the first graphic novel for adults published in Israel by a mainstream publisher. So how did readers in Israel accept it?
So I have to say there are not such a big difference. The difference maybe was that in Israel, what attract most attention is the fact that it's comics. because this was the main thing that is, wow, it's comics, it's not for children, thing that in America they solved 30 years ago. So it was more about that than about the story, which was, especially in the first book, in Exit Wounds, which was kind of disappointing for me because again, if I'm talking about my childhood, the fact that there was comics, I didn't see, and the truth is, I still don't see the difference between, again, I see the difference in the medium, but still, this is the book, and this is the book. This you read, here you read the drawings, here you read the story. So for me, it was a surprise that people react. When I was in America for the first time, I went to Barnes & Noble, and I expected that the comics book will be in the same shelves as literature, but just my book was supposed to be under M, And okay, I accept it's different, but I don't really feel it. So I really wanted people to react to the story and talk about the story. But the first book, everybody was talking about the fact that it's comics, and is it arguing if it's חתרני.
Subversive?
Subversive, yeah, enough to be called soft comics or kind of. So again, with the structure, with the medium. While in abroad, they just read the story, and reacted to the story, which was much more fun.
Right. And how much explanations or, adaptations did you have to do to make it accessible to them? Or no, they just read about a place where there's suicide attacks and...
Well, this is always a question, with translation, especially when I don't read, I can only read. But I have something to say about, okay, in Hebrew, you read from right to left, and most languages from left to right. So when I wrote the story in Hebrew, but I drew it in English.
Oh.
Because, first of all, because it was the first edition was in English, but also because the text bubbles, English is much more, is longer. Because all these vowels that you have, why do you need vowels? It's
and
okay, it's
prepositions
possible
and
to
there
read
definite
out
articles, and everything.
Anyway, you need bigger bubbles, and because it's drawings, you need to take it into consideration into the composition. So I drew it in English, and the Kobe, the hero, is a taxi driver. So when I flipped the pages for the Hebrew edition, he was driving the wrong side of the road. And it was, it's a book about Israel. It was Israeli story. So it was really, I thought it would be really irritating for the Hebrew reader. So I had to draw 150 frames again. So in the property, I was smarter. And the guy is riding a motorcycle. Because the motorcycle, if you're not an expert, you don't know if it's so this is kind of thing that you have to take into consideration.
Right. Do you think there's something like Israeli comics now? There's enough literature within the genre that we can say there is a subgenre of Israeli comics?
I think what characterize Israeli comics, it's very that it has no tradition. So people are taking from everywhere. It's very eclectic. Sometimes it's nice that you don't have tradition. When you have a tradition, you have to you refer to the tradition. Even you are going against the tradition, you are fighting it. And if you don't have, if it's like this is like exactly like Israel was founded like a desert. You can choose. So you don't have comics where you choose from. So you see in the Israeli comics, which is very small scene, but very lively one and very creative one. And I'm speaking about my students, but also some young, very artists, young, not so young, that it's very diverse, and people are looking for languages. I don't know what to say. It's like looking for way to express themselves. I mean, the way to draw, the way to tell a story. Maybe this is something that you can say about the Israeli comics.
Right. And one thing that strikes me when I look at your body of work is that you're really a great collaborator. You co-founded Actus Tragicus. You illustrated books by the most prominent Israeli authors, Edgar Keret, Hanoch Levin, Rid Zarhi. Yeah, and of course, you collaborated with your sister in making the film we just saw. Can you say something?
And with Irmi, we have also a small library, publishing house for comics for children. Making comics is very, it's something that you do. It's like being a writer, you know how it is. Like you sit in your room for hours, like 10 hours, 20 hours. Drawing is, because, I think you cannot write 20 hours a day, but you can draw 20 hours a day. It's possible. If you're not completely, you have to, don't have to eat and sleep, but it's possible because it's like swimming or dancing. It's something that's more, but I like people. So this is why I teach. Why you are laughing? You don't have to be I really like people. I like talking to people. I like working with people. This is why I also, part of it, why I became a teacher. And teaching is very big part of my life. So I like to work with people and create together. And, as long as I have my hours of working alone in the studio. Yeah.
One final word about seeing your book adapted into a movie?
Well, this is one of the best things, best experience. I don't know. I wish you all to have this experience, because not only that my book turned into a movie, which is a dream of everyone, of every comics artist, but also it's my sister. It's my little sister. I remember when she was born. I was 4. I remember the day she was born. I grew up with her. We share so much. She understands me so much. And when she said that she wants to make a film and also she is a very, very talented person, and always very perfectionist. Everything she does good. So for me, the fact that she did this, first of all, I feel that she did this movie for me, like a present, to work with her, to see how she make it, our conversations about it. For me, it was just really just pleasure. She had all the worries because she was the director. I only enjoyed it, and it was great.
And final question, can you share a quote from Jewish sources or a Hebrew text or any other text that you find meaningful and relevant at this moment?
Actually, it was, I chose something, but now it seems like a little bit serious for the event. I saw something of Leah Goldberg, who's talking about as this debate in the 40s. In the beginning of the war, in the Second World War, a big debate, because she said she wants to keep writing poems about love, about life, about nature, and the men, the poets, the group of poets, Alterman, Shlonsky, were very angry about her. And she insisted not only that she's permitted to write about, so it's not really a quote because it's in Hebrew and I cannot translate it, so I just tell you about it. She said that it's not only she's not permitted to, the poet is not only permitted, but it is obligation to write about nature, about love, about children laughing, because this is much more valuable than the war, much more important. And she said she even makes a definition between murder and death. That death is something also that can be beautiful compared to the murder, which is the death of the war, the violence. I wanted to say this because this is something that it really bothered me always, but mostly. First of all, after 7th of October, I was, for 6 weeks, I couldn't draw at all, which was, I think, the first time in my life. I just couldn't draw, just my hand didn't react to it. And then just I started working and started drawing, and it was I felt guilty of drawing or inventing, or when the reality is so strong, you say, why do we need, it's impossible. I know it's like a question that I will ask many times, but it was asked many times because it's true. It's a true, and it's true feeling, and it's always it's authentic question.
Yeah.
How can I write about, how can I draw, how can I write when the reality is much more, is much stronger and more important? What is more important than the suffering of people? So I will write about the suffering of people. So this permission to, I like that, not just Leah Goldberg, just permitted it, she also made it an obligation that we won't forget what is important. Yeah?
It couldn't be more relevant, and thank you so much.
Today's episode was produced by me, Shayna Hammerman, along with Eva Clem and Nilo Farsaraj. Sound design by Romy Chikorian. Original music is by Jeremiah Lockwood. Sight and Sound is a production of the Toby Center for Jewish Studies at Stanford.
Stanford University.